We've got a crisis when it comes to roadway fatalities in America. We lose about 40,000 people every year. It's a level that's comparable to gun violence. And we see a lot of racial disparities. Black and brown Americans, tribal citizens, and rural residents much more likely to lose their lives, whether it's in a car or as a pedestrian being hit by a car. There are a lot of reasons related to discrimination, related to even the ways that roads are designed and built. Who has access to a safe street design that's got crosswalks and good lighting? Who doesn't have that access? That can drive disparities, and we have a responsibility to act on that.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about another ridiculous interview that was conducted between the mainstream liberal media and Democrats that really show you that the mainstream liberal media is uninterested in challenging the Democrats and their crazy ideas at all. Okay, they just let Democrats spew nonsense and they never, ever, ever push back on the nonsense. Like, for example, Jen Psaki just allowing AOC to go on and on and on about how the Republicans are racist and they want to get rid of interracial marriage and all these other like silly claims that are not grounded in reality. I mean, not to mention that she openly advocated for the government coming in to censor political speech that she doesn't like and agree with. No pushback whatsoever. Here we have Pete Buttigieg, who has been on the record to basically claim that any so-called, inequalities when it comes to transportation is racism. Okay, he claimed that car accidents or why car accidents happen has something to do with racism, right? Which again is a ridiculous claim in and of itself. But he does this interview here with The Daily Show where he for whatever reason, he's claiming that Republicans trying to save women's sports, standing up for women in sports, is somehow, some way getting in the way of the woke agenda of the Biden administration when it comes to his job as the Secretary of the Department of Transportation. Take a look.
In my view, we need to act now.
Why do you think some Republicans are stalling on this? Is it because they're too busy focused on starting culture wars?
Well, I do think that the culture wars are getting in the way sometimes. I mean, just the other day, I was testifying in the Appropriations Subcommittee explaining how our budget was going to help with things like railroad safety, air traffic control, and other transportation needs. And we had to take a break so that they could all go and vote on a bill to kick transgender teenagers off of sports teams. That was the priority for the House GOP that day. So these things really are getting in the way of our ability to get work done. We're literally building bridges and they're literally banning books.
Is the Department of Transportation going woke?
I don't think it's woke to build good infrastructure. I just saw Fox News taking a run at me for the work that we're doing on safety, including the use of crash test dummies that simulate men, women, and children. And somehow this is considered a woke priority to have female crash test dummies, even though that's something that's been around for a very long time.
Fox News has made...
First and foremost, I want to say this. This guy, Pete Buttigieg, is complaining about the Republicans and their priorities when this guy literally took 3 months of paid paternity leave in the middle of a supply chain crisis so that he could breastfeed his kid. Okay, again, this is the same guy who took forever. He showed up weeks late to East Palestine to address the railroad or the train derailment that happened there that was poisoning families and children. But this guy wants to talk about the Republicans getting in the way of him achieving his agenda when it doesn't seem like to me that he's had much of a priority in regards to achieving his agenda before. Now, in regards to what he's saying, it just blows my mind how the mainstream liberal media can sit here in the interview and listen to what this man is saying and not at least ask questions about the logical inconsistencies. Because he's saying that, well, the Republicans are getting in the way of our priorities, and whatever his priorities are, okay, I'm not sure exactly what they are, but whatever his priorities are, they're getting in the way because Republicans are trying to kick transgender people off of sports teams. Completely untrue, right? Should have been challenged on that because it's not true, okay? Banning biological boys from competing against biological girls in sports is not banning transgender people from participating in sports. And Republicans also aren't banning books, okay? They're banning explicit adult content in school. Again, should have been asked. Hey, do you agree with explicit adult content being available for kids in school? I would have loved to have heard Pete Buttigieg's answer, considering how his mayor friend, right, got arrested for having kiddie tapes. Okay, so I would love to have heard Pete Buttigieg's answer in regards to whether or not he agrees with kids being exposed to stuff. Clearly, it doesn't affect who he likes to hang out with, or probably sleep with as well too, in his personal time. But it especially doesn't make sense that he's taking this position while also saying that, well, Republicans and Fox News consider us spending $20 million on female crash test dummies to address gender inequality as woke.
You also plan to make important investments to address the roadway safety crisis, including the critical funding that would accelerate the development. And this is an area I've written to you about, of the use of female dummies in crash testing. This will start to fight the gender inequity among vehicle safety and crash victims.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand the argument that the Biden administration is making here. It's illegitimate for the Republicans to address gender inequality when it comes to biological men and women competing against each other in sports, but it's totally legitimate to address the alleged gender inequalities when it comes to crash test dummies and how, I guess, vehicles are made, right? How safety in vehicles is made. So essentially, the Democrats are living in reality, the reality of biology when it comes to that subject right there, okay? Crash test dummies and a woman's safety in cars and vehicles, okay? But when it comes to women's safety in sports and gender inequality in sports, they want to pretend like, well, this is bigotry, right? It is bigotry to be concerned about the safety of women when it comes to sports and fairness and equality. Again, it's amazing how that works. And it's just funny to me how these mainstream liberal media outlets, they never ask questions about the logical inconsistencies of the Democrat ideology. How in the world can you sit here in one breath and say that the Republicans are engaged in bigotry because they're protecting women's sports, but then in another say that, well, Republicans are engaged in bigotry because they don't want us protecting women while they drive, right? They don't want female crash test dummies. Again, it blows my mind. If biology is a thing for female crash test dummies to the point where you think that, okay, it's legitimate to spend millions of taxpayer dollars to make sure that women can have gender equality when it comes to driving, right, and being safe in vehicles, then why in the world does it not make sense to make sure that women can have gender equality and be safe when participating in sports? Clearly, you know that there's a biological difference. Clearly, you know that men and women are different. But again, this stuff is never called out by the media. They just sit there and nod their head and say, oh, yeah, this makes perfect sense, when it makes no sense whatsoever. Zero, none. But you know, hey, this guy only has his job because he's a diversity hire, okay? He's an affirmative action hire. He only got this job because, who knows, I mean, maybe he does have some experience with trains, okay? Not the type that you use for transportation, other types of trains. But outside of that, again, he has a job because of who he likes to sleep with, which I guess has something to do with the trains as well too. But I'm just saying, he only has his job because of who he likes to sleep with. Guy clearly is in over his skis, okay? And the Democrats think this man is so smart, okay? He's so witty. He's so intelligent. I mean, he was even thrown out there as a possible replacement for Kamala, or who knows, maybe he'll run for president one day. Again, I'm just completely unimpressed. Anytime I've ever heard this dude talk, there's been nothing but woke nonsense being spewed out of his mouth, okay? The roads are racist, okay? He lies about the Republican agenda. He's never challenged on this stuff. And, I mean, it's just ridiculous. The Biden administration at this point is a clown show. They're more concerned about wokeness and diversity and inclusion than they are about actually doing their damn jobs, right? And that's why this country is in such a terrible place. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.